Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this week's episode of What the Health Just Happened, where we talk about all things healthcare, the good, the bad, the ups, the downs, the lefts, the rights, and everything in between. We also bring on a variety of business leaders, nonprofits, and community advocates to discuss some healthy versus unhealthy business and life practices. Today, we have a combination of both healthcare and a wonderful nonprofit, I would say. Before I introduce our guests, I'm your host, Eric Ross. Thank you, 212 Benefits, your partners in all things benefits here in Jacksonville, Florida, for sponsoring the show. Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, JDRF. Okay, I'm going to do the intro on both your titles, your roles, etc., and then you two just take it over. I'm not going to talk once after the intro, okay? So we have Kasey Repass with Repass Law. It's your husband's law firm, correct?
Yes.
Okay, but you are also the gala chair for JDRF, Party with a Purpose, and mom of T1D, that's type 1 diabetes daughter, Robinson. I'm sorry, that's
Yes.
Colleen's daughter.
Nope, Robinson's
That's your
my
daughter. Okay.
Yes.
We're gonna rewind a tad. We don't have to
Okay.
edit this. We can if we want to.
And
Your
you said
daughter's
gala.
Robinson, T1D. We're gonna get to the gala versus gala.
Okay.
We also have Colleen Morris, who happens to work for JDRF. You're the development director and mom of two T1D daughters, Quinn and Mackenzie.
That's right.
Is that accurate?
That's right.
Okay, man. The intro is always the hardest part. Now it's just casual conversation dialogue. Colleen, you work for JDRF. You're an employee of the organization, right? A 501(c)(3).
Yes.
What is it? JDRF, Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. Take it away.
Yeah, so thanks for having us today, Eric. JDRF was founded in 1970 by two moms, Lee DeCat and Carol Laurie. And just like Kasey and I, these two moms were determined to find a cure for their children living with type 1 diabetes. JDRF expanded through grassroots fundraising, advocacy efforts to become the powerhouse it is today in the scientific community. So we have, and I'm really proud to say, JDRF has funded over $2.5 billion.
With a B.
With a B.
With a B.
Billion dollars in research to date. So we've made some pretty significant progress in understanding and fighting this disease. A little bit about our mission. JDRF's mission is to prevent, treat, and cure type 1 diabetes for the 1.6 million Americans living with it and the 8.8 million people globally living with type 1. So we are a leading global organization funding type 1 diabetes research.
Okay, before we dive into the disease process, we talked about that priorly. I'm going to ask just kind of some questions about JDRF specifically. So, nationwide organization across how many states? Do you know?
All across the country.
Let's say all 50 states.
And globally.
So JDRF is a international organization raising funds for everyone, not just the U.S. That's
right.
Pretty cool. We're going to focus on Florida because we happen to sit here and reside here, right? And you had mentioned there's, in the state of Florida, pre-COVID, you had 8 divisions or 8 units spread across the state?
Yeah, so pre-COVID, there was, let's say, 9 chapters. Now, after COVID, we've condensed it down to 2, the Northern Florida chapter, which I'm part of, and the Southern Florida chapter. So in the Northern Florida chapter, we have people like myself working in Tampa, Orlando, and I'm based here in Jacksonville.
So again, I love to, we're going to talk about JDRF a ton. I'm just going to call it T1D the whole time. Type 1 diabetes. We'll talk about type 2 diabetes briefly, right? So JDRF, this I would say incredible organization from what I understand. I haven't had to deal with it personally. I have some friends that have. Emphasis on that, some upcoming events that I think are a big deal, and then of course your experience dealing with T1D as mothers. Grassroots organization. So 2 moms, right, like yourselves, 2 moms, started this how long ago?
In 1970.
So,
Actually, on my birthday, May 21st. Did you know
Oh,
that?
I did not know
Yeah.
that.
like are you going to like your date of
crazy.
birth
My
or
date
just
of birth? No, I'm old. I'm younger than that.
Okay, that's what I was saying. Do we know?
It's on the
That's
date.
what I'm looking for. Not that,
Please, I'm younger.
but the actual date. Okay. And then again, COVID changed a lot of things, but Florida specifically, it's now broken into 2 segments, South and North Florida. North Florida is Jacksonville, Duval. I live here. We love it here. You said Tampa, Orlando, and then you mentioned Gainesville, Tallahassee, and
Yeah, so we're the whole northern Florida community. We out to the Panhandle, Tallahassee, Gainesville, So we have physical people working for JDRF based in Tampa, Orlando, and Jacksonville, but my job extends outside of Jacksonville to the greater Jacksonville communities as well.
The big five, like Nassau,
Yeah.
Baker, Duval, St. John's. Who am I missing? What's the last? That's my four. Clay, that's it.
Clay,
Thank you.
very good.
Yeah. Okay. Grassroots organization. I love to emphasize this. This is two moms who started this dealing with their personal issues, right? Their children with T1D. Say the number again, the funds that you guys have raised since you started.
$2.5 billion
with a
in
B.
research.
And then the most important thing here, the mission is to prevent, treat, and cure type 1 diabetes. That's a pretty ambitious goal. Okay. So before we talk about the disease process, what kind of moves have you made so far?
Yeah. So, well, in the prevention space, the biggest thing that's happened since I think 100 years ago, insulin was developed, which was a really big thing to happen in the type 1 diabetes community. Last November, the FDA approved this drug therapy called Tzield. So this is the first disease-modifying treatment for individuals 8 years and up at risk for developing type 1 diabetes. So this is really huge. This is the first
Big deal.
Big deal.
Big deal.
Big deal.
Do you want to hold off? Let's talk about the disease process, how it works. I think, Kasey, you mentioned you're comfortable talking about the disease process. I can chime in too. And then we'll talk about the medication specifically.
Absolutely.
So disease process, two moms here. What is type 1 diabetes?
So type 1 diabetes occurs when the body's immune system attacks and destroys certain cells in the pancreas. And these cells are called beta cells. Beta cells normally produce insulin, and insulin is a hormone that helps the body move the sugars contained in food into the cells throughout the body, which gives us energy, right? So when the beta cells are destroyed, no insulin can be produced, and the sugar stays in the blood, which can cause serious damage to your other organs. For this reason, people with type 1 diabetes, they have to take insulin. They are insulin dependent every single day in order to survive, in order to live.
This is mom talking, by the way, who dealt with it. You don't have type 1 diabetes,
No.
but your daughter does. We'll get to that momentarily. So continue. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. So this means that in order for someone to get insulin, they have to either have multiple injections a day, or I think it was when was the pump created? The 50s. They have an insulin pump now that you can have one injection every 3 days where the pump is connected to your body, and it can administer insulin using a personal device. Actually, the phone sometimes now works.
We'll
for
get
some
to
of
that.
them. Yes,
You've got
okay.
your phone there monitoring it.
So, but the bottom line is they're insulin dependent for life, and that's different from type 2 diabetes, where
Hold off till you get there, because I want to talk about. No, this is great.
Okay.
Let's type 1 diabetes. It's an autoimmune disorder, right? Your body is essentially fighting itself. You're having issues with beta cells, and insulin's the biggest thing. Type 2 diabetes, go ahead. I always explain it like you're either born with it or you've earned it. I think type 2 diabetes you kind of earn over time.
Well, I think you're probably genetically disposed to it as well, but with type 2 diabetes, your body doesn't use the insulin properly. You're kind of insulin resistant. And although people with type 2, they can manage it with diet and exercise and medicine, it's still a serious chronic illness. And any research that's done to help type 1 obviously is going to help type 2. But with type 1, you don't have a pancreas at all, basically. It's not working.
It doesn't function properly.
Right, at all. So there's no insulin that you're producing. So you are relying on 100% synthetic insulin. Versus type 2, you have insulin, you just may not have enough to keep up with what your body is requiring.
Signs and symptoms. Actually, two big things first. Hypoglycemia, which is low. Hypo means low. Hyperglycemia means high.
Right.
So signs and symptoms of both?
Right. So normal blood sugar range is 70 to 120. And like we said earlier, you're probably around 80, probably.
Right now, I don't know. I had a donut before I walked in.
Oh, maybe you
I'm
might
kidding.
be like
I didn't
100.
really.
So the warning signs of type 1, what happens is when your body is not producing insulin, you have all this sugar floating around in your bloodstream.
Versus your cells where they should go.
Right.
To create energy.
The insulin's kind of like, I used to explain this to the kids, it's like Pac-Man going around your
this is
bloodstream.
good.
cleaning up the sugar and pulling it into your cells. And if you don't have that insulin in your cells, you don't have any energy. You're lethargic, you're tired, you're weak, and you can't grow. You'll see, like, if your kid starts getting really thin, very skinny, and not changing sizes. Our kid, in fact, went down a size. It's not a growth spurt all the time. It could be that the cells are not getting the energy that it needs in order to grow.
And you're really thirsty.
You're thirsty. You're drinking a lot of water.
Constantly.
That's your body's natural reaction to drink a lot of water, and then you're going to the bathroom a lot. So a lot of
Polyuria, that's the medical term, by the way. Do you know that?
Okay,
I did
no.
not
Poly
know
means
that.
high. That
The
means,
EMT in you is
that means
coming
urinating
out.
often.
Yes.
Polyuria.
So much
Polyuria.
that you might think your child, if it's a younger child, is bedwetting again and reverting, I guess, back to that.
Reverting's good. That's a
Whatever.
good word.
Regressing. But that's not always the case. So you can lose a lot of weight. You could be irritable and be moody. And also, like when you have really high blood sugar, it creates blurred vision. So those are some of the
And
things.
I think what's really key is, even though JDRF does, stand for juvenile research, you can get diabetes.
Any age.
Yeah, any age.
Any
all
point.
stages, all ages. It does not discriminate. And often adults are misdiagnosed.
They just think they're sick. Yeah.
This is good again, because I can assure you, two close friends of mine, college buddies, who I told, you two were coming on. This is the topic. They'll listen to this for sure. They weren't diagnosed till they were in their late 20s. And it made sense. They're like, my goodness, my whole life this stuff was going on. And now they're on, constant glucose monitors. We'll talk about insulin pumps. But
Yeah.
I did print this out. And this is when I worked at the fire department, we carry this for kids. This is a quick little visual here. I'm holding it for the
look at
camera.
that.
I love it. Again, very simple. Hot and dry, sugar's high, right? So signs and symptoms, hyperglycemia, high blood sugar. Polyphagia, so poly means high. That means increased hunger. Polyuria, more urination. Polydipsia, that means more thirsty. These
Yeah.
are medical terms. So you're thirsty,
Okay.
you're urinating more often, you're more hungry. Incredibly dried skin, blurred vision, delayed wound healing is a big one too. That's
Yeah,
more for adults.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cold and clammy needs some candy.
Yes.
So that's hypoglycemia.
Yes.
Right? Blood sugar's low. Your heart rate goes up, irritability, restlessness, excessive hunger, dizziness, and then you're pale and clammy. So that's just the medical side of me from my old days, where you'd show up to someone with higher or low blood sugar.
Yeah, that's pretty spot on.
That's good.
So this visual I love too, by the way. Anyone with kids needs something hanging up. If you're, you had talked about getting to know the firefighters close by, your school nurses, your teachers, they have to be aware of
Your
that stuff.
coaches. Yeah.
All of them.
Anybody
We're going to hit that pretty hard if you're comfortable talking about that.
Yeah.
So briefly talking about, right, what's T1D versus type 2 diabetes. Colleen, you comfortable talking about some advancements? Because a lot's changed, right? And it changes continuously, improves all the time, which is great. Some recent changes you've seen that you think JDRF has contributed to.
Yeah, so as I was mentioning before, Tzield, that is like the first time in history there's this approved drug therapy that can delay the onset for at-risk individuals for up to 2 or more years. So I'm so excited just even talking about this. This was approved last November, and it's like, we can actually prevent this disease. That's huge.
That's a big deal.
And just think about like what kind of research advancements that we're going to take in like the next 2 years. Like where is it going to go next? If we can offset the disease for at-risk individuals over for 2 years, and I'm just really excited about what are we going to then develop? Can we offset it for 5 years? So I'm super excited about Tzield. And so when I say at-risk individuals. So, for example, I have 2 daughters, who have type 1 diabetes.
Hold on. I love shout outs to the daughters. Whether they listen or not. Yours are Quinn and Mackenzie, and yours is Robinson. Right. Okay, I got it. I'll remember it now.
So Quinn is 13. She was diagnosed at 4. Mackenzie is 9, and I diagnosed her at home when she was 7. That was a surreal moment. So my son, I have a son who's 15. So I could take him to get screened because we're at risk for having, family members diagnosed with this disease. I think it's 15 times more likely to get type 1 diabetes if you do have a family member. So I could have my son screened, and it's through one of JDRF's funded screenings called T1 Detect. and he could get tested for these antibodies. And if he comes back with 2 or more antibodies, we're kind of going to monitor that with our endocrinologist to see if it's going to progress. And if it does progress to a certain level, he could receive Tzield to offset this disease and have his life back for a couple of years, because it's exhausting being a pancreas.
Yeah.
365 days a year, 24/7. It's exhausting. So that's one of the most exciting things right now that JDRF has, funded.
Can I ask a couple questions? I think this is important information, right? So JDRF, which is supporting parents all over the country, worldwide, you mentioned, children also. The T1 Detect. So JDRF, if you're more susceptible, your 15-year-old son, you have this detection process that does JDRF fund that? They recommend it? How do you know when to test other?
So I think their goal, isn't it, to get it into the pediatrician's office so that when your child goes to your annual appointment, it will just...
That's just one of the tests.
That'll be one of the tests. And then you see if they have the antibodies, and then you can...
Absolutely.
Be immediately sent to an endocrinologist to go on this medicine.
We just had our checkups, and I actually asked our pediatricians, I'm like, what if somebody came here and asked you to get screened? They didn't have the answer.
There's a lot of
educating involved.
It's a lot of educating involved, but we should be screening. So I just want to throw out this other thing. 85% of T1D diagnoses happen to people with no known family connection. 85%.
I'll say that one more time. 85%.
85% of type 1 diabetes diagnoses happen to people with no known family connection.
That there says that it's not just genetic, it's environmental.
So that's the interesting part of the disease.
That's a large percentage of people.
And there's a whole bunch of studies about the gut too, and how that relates to
the gut biome. I need a gut doctor, a stomach doctor. I know who you are. I've got you on the list, by the way. So Tzield, is that how you say it?
Tzield.
FDA approval, that's a long process. So what I assume, this is, again, you shouldn't assume, because what do they say? It makes an ass of you and me. Please blurb that A word out. They've done years of research, and they've created this medication that now delays the disease process by, what do you say, 2 to 3 years?
Up to 2 years or more.
Okay. So what are they working on behind the scenes? Something even better.
Yeah.
And who is funding and supporting that?
JDRF.
JDRF.
Yeah, so I'll just mention real briefly. Okay, so like I said, our mission is to prevent. So that's going to fall under the prevention. Curing it is really what we all want to see. So we're also funding various different types of cell therapy research. So there's stem cell-based research, there's beta cell-based research therapy. So your beta cells, there's something called beta cell encapsulation. So they're trying to boost the beta cells, I guess, you want to say, regrowth, so they can,
Oh, science. I'm not smart enough to understand that.
I can explain
go ahead.
this. It's about the size of a Band-Aid, and they wrap the beta cells in a membrane. It's like a semi-permeable membrane where the insulin can come out, but the the immune system can't get in. So it protects it. And they surgically implant it into you, and I think it's every 2 years. Am I saying that right?
It could be, yeah.
I guess they're working.
You know more than I do. You're educating me right now.
And this is based on just research I've heard and attended.
There's a documentary that's called The Human Trial that came out last summer. And I watched it, and it followed the first 2 people who did this beta cell encapsulation therapy. And it's really moving to see, for us to get to the cure, what we have to go through. And so we are currently in human trials and showing some pretty amazing results. So I'm very excited about the research that JDRF funds.
That's incredible. And I think your daughter did a early trial, right, that I want to get to in a second. But talking about other advancements technology-wise. So one is constant glucose monitoring, which did not exist, right? There was finger sticking how often? Before
12
DCM.
times a day.
12 times a day.
We would alternate at night every other hour.
I mean,
my husband and I.
That's
exhausting.
Not exhausting at all. Yeah, I think about my young kids when I'm up at night trying to relieve my wife.
It's worse than a newborn baby.
Okay, so you have that. And then, of course, advancements in insulin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about that at all? Some advancements there,
Smart
either one of you?
insulin.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know.
The pumps?
Go for it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, okay. So I'll just compared to, so my first daughter, Quinn, was diagnosed when she was 4. So at 4 years old, I am chasing her around with syringes to give her injectable insulin. I had at that time 3 different types of insulin that I had to put in, like
fast acting.
there was fast acting, slow acting, and then I had to combine 2 into one syringe in these like micro milliliters. So like if you think about the scariest part for me, as when I had to measure all of the insulin in the syringes, this much will save your daughter. This much will kill your daughter.
So we have cameras in here, but I need to explain. She's using her thumb and her finger. That's maybe a quarter of an inch difference.
Of an inch. Yeah.
A unit could kill your.
Yeah. So
when you're that young.
No pressure, Mom.
No
I know,
pressure.
right?
And
what
like
year was this?
This was. It'll be 10 years since she was diagnosed. This 2024. So it was like over 9.5 years ago.
So we'll say approximately 10 years, all these advancements.
Yes.
And now you have insulin pumps.
So now both of my daughters wear a pump that loops. Okay, so this actually, the looping part of it, and I can explain that real quickly, that just came about a year ago. That was approved, FDA approved. So what that means is that they wear a pump, they wear a pod on their arm. Every 3 days we change it out. So now we're not doing the injections all day. And when their blood sugar numbers go high, this pump will automatically give them more insulin, where before I had to like manually go in to give them more insulin. When they go low, the pump will shut off, because when you go low, you don't need insulin, you need carbs. So this looping system for pediatric patients now exists thanks to JDRF, and it talks to this app on their phone that's called a continuous glucose monitor.
GCMs are frequently used term if you're not.
Yeah. So now we have
GCMs?
CGMs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wrong acronym.
Yeah. So JDRF funds a lot of the technology to treat the disease, and it's
Robinson
a real game
was
changer.
actually in a trial back in, I think it was 2011, where she wore
Which
one
is
of these.
13 years ago, by the way.
Long time ago, yeah.
Or 12.
And
I can't do math or acronyms or anything right now.
I think it was like the Navigator or something, but JDRF funded that. And we've also been in another trial where now instead of the intramuscular glucagon, if you go unconscious, there's an intranasal one.
Yeah, that's a great one.
JDRF, part of that.
So how are we doing on time, Trey? You watching? We got 2 minutes left. Okay, well,
So
Make this real
managing the
quick.
disease has become a lot easier in like the 14
intranasal
years
means
of
in the nose. Intramuscular means in the muscle. It used to be subcutaneous shots. Like so much has changed. I think that's pretty incredible. First half, I told you it'd fly by. We're almost at the commercial break here, which is great. A lot of JDR stuff, some changes, educating on type 1 diabetes versus type 2. I'm thinking second half, I'd love to hear some personal stories if you're comfortable sharing those and the journey you've had. And then really talk about some upcoming events for JDRF, the fundraising you're doing, which again, $2.5 billion. That's insane. Anyone you want to say hi to? Because I like to say, hi, Mom, I love you. That's great to say.
Aw, I love my mom too. Hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom. Love you too.
And our kids, of course, by the way. Kasey and Colleen, both with JDRF here in Jacksonville. We're going to talk a lot again about these upcoming events that I'm excited for. Probably healthy or not healthy. But first half, we did some science stuff, some disease process stuff, some advancements. I'm excited. I told you that it'd fly by, though, right? That's what the health just happened. All right, welcome back to the second half of What the Health Just Happened. If you missed the first half, good news is it's available on whatever podcast here. I don't know. iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, etc. But thank you, 104.5, for letting us talk about healthcare stuff. We have 2 representatives from JDRF, Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, Kasey Repass and Colleen Morris. That's right. 2 daughters for Colleen with T1D, 1 daughter for Kasey with T1D. We talked a lot about the adjustments in care, the advancements, the amount of funds that JDRF has raised. We're going to talk about some upcoming events. But right now, I think sharing stories in your journey as moms, right? This grassroots organization that's really changing the treatments and care for T1D children. I have Kasey's notes here, and I'm going to read this. Ed Damiano, is that how I say it?
Yes.
Okay, with Beta Bionics. This is a quote from him. So this is from his perspective as a parent of a T1D kid. Imagine for a moment that you are a parent of a child with a chronic illness, and the medicine that you give that child every night could kill him or her if you get the dose just a little bit wrong. Now imagine for a moment that the dose that you gave your child yesterday that worked doesn't work today for some reason. And imagine that you have to worry about this every single day for the rest of your child's life. And finally imagine that you have to send that child off to college one day, and the full burden of that responsibility falls on your child's shoulders, and the worry of that child being able to get up and take on a new day was always ever on your mind. So if you can imagine all of that, you can imagine what it is to be the parent of a child with type 1 diabetes. Even with the best technology, there is still so much room for error. The closed loop system is not God's perfect pancreas. I got chills reading that, by the way. I didn't read that beforehand. I'm glad I didn't stutter.
So you read that, and it makes my heart go up into my throat, and I just want to start crying.
Me too. Me too.
So again, two mothers here with type 1 diabetic children. Your daughter is now in college. Yes. Are you comfortable sharing some of that story?
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, it's not easy, but sure. So Robinson was diagnosed at the age of 4. We, like we said before, she was wetting the bed, drinking a lot of water, and we didn't understand why. We thought she had a UTI. She had lost a lot of weight, was really lethargic, falling asleep all the time. We took her into the doctor on the way to the beach with a bunch of other kids, and the doctor was like, you need to go straight to Wilson. Her sugars were 840.
Oh,
wow.
So
we took her to...
normal's 80 to 120, approximately.
70 to 120, yeah. So we took her to Wilson, and you're there for 4 days learning how to take care of your child all over again. And, it doesn't hit you until that night when the nurse gives you the syringes and the meter and says, here, now your turn. You need to learn how to poke her through the night to test her sugars. She taught us about the cold and clammy, because at that time we didn't have the Dexcom sensor to alert us on our phones that she's going low. So we would go up at night every other hour, my husband and I, and check to see if she was cold or if she was warm to the touch, and see if we felt like we needed to test her and wake her up. Most of the time, eventually she learned to sleep through it. But she was 4 years old. She'd climb up on my lap, and I would reach around and hug her and give her injections on the back of her arm so I wouldn't see her face and she wouldn't see mine crying. So, you start to, as a parent, you have to go from this mode of, my gosh, I'm going to have to inflict pain on my child every 2 hours so that she can live again. And you have to switch your heart to be like, I got this. I have to do this to keep her alive. And as a parent, you have to be strong for your kid. And I think that's kind of been our motto, both myself and DR, that we are going to let Robinson do anything that she wants to do with this disease, and she can do anything. And we're not going to stop her from it. And we're just going to be there to support her and, help her be everything that she can be, and not let this disease define who she is.
Age 4.
Right?
Learning about it. And you have middle school, high school, and she was a competitive athlete, right?
Right. So we've been in gymnastics meets where she's done a flip and a vault at 40 double arrow down because she's
I don't know what that means,
persistent.
By the way. My daughter's 5.
Blood sugar, the kid is
I thought
resilient.
You meant a trick on gymnastics. Sorry.
No, she started with gymnastics. She's been through swimming where we've had to test her every 30 minutes swimming because, blood sugar really drops when you're swimming and you're underwater. Mm-hmm. So we're holding our breath, letting her swim. And then we decided, well, let's try to transition into volleyball. At least it's above the water. So she's, I was telling Colleen before, I have a younger daughter that was 7 years old at the time, and we're in this huge gym in Orlando, the convention center. And I had to leave my 7-year-old daughter because at this time, we had the Dexcom sensor, and it was alerting me that she was low, L-O-W, double
That's all you
down.
get, yeah.
That's it. That's
not
bottom.
good.
When you're really low, that's what you get.
So I'm running across the whole gym to find the court that my daughter's on, to figure out which backpack is hers, to find the glucagon, to figure out, I'm alerting the coach. She has to stop the game, pull my kid out because she's so resilient. She's got this like competitive, athletic thing about her drive, and she will
That's a
not.
good skill set, by the way.
It is, but it's mind over matter. It's mind over matter, and she wouldn't stop. She kept playing. And she was like fighting us, taking her out because you're belligerent when you're we're like, you need to sit. We're getting your blood sugar up. But anyway, it's been a journey with my child, because when you exercise as a type 1 diabetic, the low from that exercise can happen between the point of exercise and like 48 hours later, and you don't know when it's going to hit. And unfortunately for us, 4:30 is the magic number in the morning of when it would hit. And so, before the navigator, before the Dexcom sensor, this is why I think they put us in that trial, because we kept having this happen. But before the sensor, we didn't know when that was going to happen, and so sometimes we would have a 4:30 test, and she would be really, really low and not responsive. So
now she's in college.
First
year.
Yep.
So are you back to sleepless nights as mom?
She is very mature and very responsible. And for all those moms out there, I would let go of control when they're not necessarily.
Oh, that's my wife.
It's hard. It's hard as a parent, period, to let go of control. But I would let go of control earlier and not be so micromanaging, because the earlier you do that, the more confident you're going to be with letting your child go. And it's better when they're under your roof and you let go of that control. I mean, the last year before she went to college, we're downstairs, she's upstairs. We would let the alarms go off. We would wait and wait. It's hard to see if she would do anything. Then we would call her as if she was in her dorm. If she didn't answer, we would ping the Find My iPhone. If she didn't answer that, then we'd have to go upstairs and wake her up and be like, hey, this is happening. You need to wake up. She doesn't feel it in her sleep. So we trained her for the last year. She wasn't getting a lot of sleep, and she's definitely not getting a lot of sleep, I know, right now in college, trying to do this all on her own. But, we've been watching it, and we've set parameters with the college. Unfortunately, there's nothing you can do with her roommate to require her to do anything, or the RA, but we have campus security's number, and, whether or not that's going to be enough time to get to her, we have a process. We have a list of 30 items that we've given her that we've learned over the years of never do this, always do this.
I need a copy of that list.
She has to do that before she goes to bed.
We might need another episode to go through those 30 items, because, again, this is relevant information for parents.
This is how we keep our kids alive. Like, this is serious. This is our day-to-day life.
Because the technology is great, and thank God we have the Dexcom sensor, and we can see what her blood sugars are to have that catch on her. But the technology is not, like you said, the perfect pancreas.
So I read your quote, by the way. I got chills reading that. You're going to have to send me that, because I just think it's something cool to read and share.
Sure.
Anything you want to add as a mom before we talk about, let's just JDRF.
Yeah, so, I think just dealing with this disease now with 2 daughters,
I can't imagine.
it's like, it is absolutely exhausting. And I came on board. I've been volunteering for JDRF for 9 years since Quinn's diagnosis, and I came on board a year ago as an employee because I said, I have to do more. I need to find a cure.
I want to add to that.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing about JDRF that I want to plug. When you're diagnosed, you get a backpack with Rufus in it to practice, a bag of hope that's full of stuff from JDRF on how to help manage the diabetes, and guides for parents, and just all kinds of stuff on what to do with school. That organization, it's a community that you're automatically a part of, and that I couldn't do anything without it. But being involved in JDRF and volunteering as a parent, it gives you a sense of control over this disease when you cannot control the disease. And if I didn't have my job with my husband, I would truly be working for JDRF.
Repass law. Free plug.
She's volunteering for us almost on a full-time basis. So.
It's the only thing you can do.
Yeah.
All right, quick pivot. Is it gala or gala?
Gala.
Gala.
We got a gala and a gala. Colleen, where are you from?
I'm from New York.
Okay, Northeast. And then, real quick, because I don't know this, I didn't look this up. You've been with JDR for 1 year, and you were part of the movement, the organization. What were you doing before that?
So good question. I've worn a few hats. I worked in marketing and public relations for a while in New York City. I was also a special ed teacher for a few years. And I've been volunteering with JDRF for almost 10 years. And, you know, the mission is my purpose in life. And I kind of took all of the skills I had from my other professional jobs and volunteering, and I get to put it into this role now and fundraise.
Marketing and
She's amazing.
I would have to agree. So marketing and PR and special education or any education, you're taking that and contributing that to JDRF.
Yeah, fundraising
Something that
and advocacy.
That you had lived for a while.
Yeah.
Okay. So clearly JDRF is awesome, I would say. And again, I don't have experience directly other than some friends who have ranted and raved about the organization. Some people feel weird talking about fundraising, but that's what supports full-time employees. That's how you make these changes. It is gala, not gala, but we're going to call it Party with a Purpose.
Okay.
There are a lot of big events, and Kasey's the chair for Jacksonville's Party with a Purpose. I want to talk about this a ton. And you got to nail this because this is where we're going to take that video footage and just post it. I'm kidding. Okay. I'm kidding. What is the date of Party with a Purpose?
November 9th.
November 9th. What time does it start?
6 p.m.
Okay. She's looking at her notes. This is great.
6 p.m.
I wrote it down too.
Sawgrass.
Okay, so November 9th, 6 p.m., TPC Sawgrass. And when we had talked previously, there's approximately 250 to 300 people there. What is this event? I know, look, again, it's a huge deal. You're one of the main chairs for it. The flow of it, like the money you raised in the last, 30 minutes, that's cool stuff. Let's talk about this event.
The Fund to Cure part. So the Party with a Purpose, TPC Sawgrass, November 9th.
6 p.m.
6 p.m. We have a cocktail hour, then a silent auction, and a live auction. And we have a portion of the night that's dedicated to a Fund to Cure family. We have Fallon Schiltz. Fallon Schiltz. She actually has type 1, and then her youngest daughter, younger of 4, I guess, was just diagnosed Memorial Day weekend. So that should be
it's a moving story.
Very moving story. So we have the Fund to Cure segment, and then we have dancing with Pete the Job Guy.
Dancing? Oh, don't kid. Now, the only reason I'm going is just to outdance Pete the Job Guy, by the way. The fact that he's getting free plugs, I don't love.
Yeah, no. And I'll just also throw in there, our honorary chair is also our presenting sponsor this year, and that's Chris and Dawn Shee of Mastercraft Builders. Chris's son, Brandon, was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in his teen years, and now Brandon is a young man, 23 years old, working for Pulte Group. So they will also be speaking at this year's Party with a Purpose. And then the Schultz family that Kasey mentioned, Fallon and her daughter have a really moving story that we'll be sharing as well that night.
We'll bring it up again, November 9th.
Into the Blue is the theme.
Into the Blue is the theme. Party with a Purpose, Into the Blue. But I actually wrote down the website here. Who can say the website off the top of their head to sign up?
JacksJDRFparty.com.
There it is. JacksJDRFparty.com. That's for that specific event.
Yeah.
There's 2 other events, too, that are worth talking about. But for the community to give back, I always say you can donate really 2 ways, with your time or your money. So Joe Schmo walking down the street that hears this episode and thinks, I want to give back to this organization. Where do they find more information? How do they give back their time and their money, quite frankly?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we are lean and mean at JDRF, like employee-wise. So we really rely on our community to help us with volunteering and fundraising. So volunteers are the heart and soul of the JDRF organization. If you go to jdrf.org/Northern Florida, you can learn more about the events in our community, how to get connected to others living with type 1 diabetes. If you want to donate your time, I encourage you to email our chapter at northernflorida@jdrf.org. You can also follow us on social media. So JDRF Northern Florida, look us up on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And I just wanted to share a couple of our other programs if we have time. So, all of the research that we talked about before, it takes a lot of money, billions of dollars, in fact.
What was it, $2.5 billion?
Yeah, $2.5 billion to date. It takes a lot of money to get to reach and advance our mission So we have a couple of programs that support these fundraising efforts. We have our Ride to Cure Diabetes program, and that's in Amelia Island. It's coming up November 30th to December 3rd. You can bike ride up to 100 miles, but as they say, it's about the smiles, not the miles.
I like that.
And I just want to give a shout out to Bobby Owenarte and Carla Voorhees Toll in Northern Florida. They both are amazing. They coach, they participate, they ride, they fundraise for several of JDRF's rides throughout our country and including the Amelia Island ride each year. So I just want to say thank you so much to Bobby and Carla. You guys are awesome. And then we have our walk. So traditionally, our walk in Northern Florida is in the spring.
This is the one I had heard about previously.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just what I hear about a ton is the walk.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's great for T1D families to connect in community.
It's a really, really special day. So we have 3 walks going on in the spring, Tampa, Orlando, and Jacksonville. And it's the largest peer-to-peer fundraiser and T1D event in the world. So we have 150 of these walks, of our One Walks going across the country each year. It powers more research, enables more advocacy, and funds more support for the 1.6 million Americans living with T1D. So a lot of families who first get diagnosed, that's their entryway into the JDRF community. They start with a walk. So the walk, I know just from seeing it from my girls' perspective, when they show up on walk day and they're seeing Chad Muma, who plays for the Jags, who also has type 1. Go Jags.
Yep. It's week 1 of the NFL. It's going to come up.
Fantasy football day.
Fantasy football day.
I chose him.
Yeah, Chad is out there. He speaks at our walks annually, and he's out there and he's showing off like his, CGMs and his pumps. And for my girls to see this NFL football player living with this disease and all of its challenges, and they're having these side conversations with him and all of the other families out there that day, like, oh, are you high? Are you low? It makes them feel so supported and so loved that, like, for me, walk is such a special day. It's also like, it's all inclusive. Everyone can show up and come out to walk.
Yeah, not just families exposed to T1D, but everyone to support them and come out. That's, again, the first time I'd heard about it was, this is way too many plugs for Pete the Job Guy and Angie, by the way. I'm kidding. We'll laugh
He's
about
my
this
neighbor,
later
or was my neighbor.
I love them both. The walk they talked about, I know he's sponsored the event, and then we had some friends that set up a team. I was like, I hadn't heard of it till, I don't know if it was a year or two ago. So that's 3 big events, the ride, the walk, which is the big one, and the gala, not gala, which Kasey is the chair of, November 9th, 6 p.m. at TPC Sawgrass.
Inside.
Okay. Fundraising huge. What else can we address? Because I'm pretty sure, Trey, how are we doing on time over here? Most people don't ask. 6 minutes. Okay. No one's counting though, right? By the way, this is live. It's Saturday night on the radio show. I'm winking. It's not live. We record ahead of time. Research, funding, parents going through the experience. What else you want to add in there? There's probably a lot you could still add. But
So
go ahead.
I would say, for people who are listening to this and you want to get involved, we have a lot of different volunteer opportunities, whether you want to come out and walk on walk day, individuals, schools, families, corporations, you can all register for a walk team. So if you want to just physically be present, you can sign up for a walk team. If you want to volunteer, we partner with Wawa every year, and I have to tell you, the Wawa volunteers show up at the crack of dawn, 5:30 in the morning. It's pitch blackout, and they help us, ready to rock. They help us put the actual the logistics side of the walk on. So we have a lot of corporate volunteers and volunteers in the community that come out and help us put on these events. Walk is really heavily, we heavily rely on our volunteers to help us on that side of it. So, and then for corporations, there's a lot of different sponsorship opportunities too for all of our programs, Walk, Ride, and the Gala program. So I think it's great if you want to give back to your community in a philanthropic way. You want some corporate visibility for your employees to kind of rally behind one shared goal to get together. That sponsorship is a great opportunity as well. And then, also in our chapter, Other ways that if you want to feel supported, we do a coffee and conversation. Yeah. So like for me, when my daughter was diagnosed, we were living in Connecticut at the time, and that's how I got connected.
Where's that? I'm kidding. Sorry.
But that's how I got connected to JDRF. It was through these coffee meetups and meeting people like Kasey.
And I wanted to talk about
That's
that.
great. Yeah.
As much as the corporate sponsorship side of things really gets things moving with JDRF and donations, I think it's grassroots. It starts with our families. And I want to speak to the families that are listening to this that are impacted by type 1. They need to get involved with JDRF simply just to connect, like the day of walk. When you bring your child, let's just use an example as a child, you bring your child to walk and you surround that child with all of their family, all of their friends that are their support system. I'll never forget when they stopped to say the Pledge of Allegiance and everything was silent, and you have that moment of the Star Spangled Banner, and you're looking around at your support system and you're seeing your child just beaming because they're feeling that love right now. It really hits home. And that is another purpose. It's a purpose for JDRF to let these families know, these people that have type 1, that they have a family, an instant family. And because of those people and the connections that they have in the communities, they may have corporate sponsorships that they can think of and know to give us the name that we will then go out and talk and say, hey, this many people are impacted in your organization by this disease. How can we partner with you so that we can impact this family with type 1?
This is, again, you talk about the specific events and thinking of the child, looking at their support system. What about the other moms and dads who look around like, look at all these people going through a similar situation.
They're not alone.
Hey, nice to meet you, friend.
Okay, that's the
Tell
other
me your
thing.
adventure. I mean, that in and of itself is worth going to every single coffee with a purpose or coffee with friends. What was it called?
Coffee and conversation.
Coffee and conversation. I love that.
And if you're a family, share your story with other families. Reach out to the newly diagnosed families and be that person. I will never forget Becky Gray was my mentor.
Aw,
we
I love
assigned
Becky.
mentors to families,
Okay.
and she kept calling and calling, and I'm like, I got this. I don't need her. And I finally broke down in the Walmart parking lot with the pharmacy issue that I had and called her, and that's another reason of why we have JDRF. And it's about that too.
Yeah,
it's not
that
always
support
just
is
about the money.
so needed, especially that first year of diagnosis where you're just completely overwhelmed. You're in a fog. You know, I remember Suzanne Stafford. She lives in Darien, Connecticut. She was my person that got me through those first few years.
Man, that's good. Trey, how we doing? I keep asking you. Oh, the book.
Oh.
Yes, let's plug. Oh my gosh, I like that. Trey chimed in. I'm holding this up. I don't know how much we'll get on camera here. You shared your journey on social media with your daughter. I'm holding this giant book, the biggest book I've read. Go ahead.
There are hours sometimes that you're awake at night and you're alone with the moon and your kid just watching your child to make sure that they live. And that's when I would blog because I didn't know what else to do. I was telling people my story, and I put it on Facebook under Robinson's Rainbows. And I just would tell my story and share it so that people didn't feel alone. They knew that I was going through this too, or other people are going through it. They're not alone. And if I can make this mistake, and I'm a CPA, certainly people
way smarter than I am.
I mean, people that can't crunch these numbers to calculate the carbohydrate to insulin ratio or whatever, it's a hard disease to manage. So I shared it. I shared all the times we had to use glucagon. I've shared just everything that we did every time I volunteered
Robinson's
for Gala,
Rainbows.
our walk. Yeah, that's our walk name. And so
Okay.
it's Facebook Robinson's Rainbows. But it has been stagnant since my daughter turned 16.
She said, "No more, Mom."
She said, "No more, Mom," because she was dating a boy and she didn't want that boy to think she was only diabetes. And she was
Okay.
tired of being the face of diabetes. She was like a youth ambassador in Children's Congress and did a whole bunch of advocacy. And she was just needing a moment to be Robinson.
You
I was
have
like, I
that
respected
forever.
So I printed that.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
So that we could have it. I don't know what's going to happen with Facebook, but so that's printed. Right now I just promote things on Facebook, like the gala and the coffee thing and everything. So
Gala, not gala.
gala.
Party with a
Southern
purpose.
thing. When you're in Florida, it's in the South.
That by the way, that's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool
mean,
to look at now.
And you know, years from now, she's going to look at that and be like, okay, I love this book. It's like one of her most prized possessions, I would
My
assume.
mom loved me.
Yeah.
All moms love their kids.
Yes, you
Dads
do.
do too.
We try our best, but we're just not as good as moms are. Let's be honest. Man, I told you the time would fly by. We didn't get to healthy or not healthy. We might have to do a little selfie video afterwards.
Okay.
Big events, the walk, the ride, the gala, Party with a Purpose. Got to keep saying Party with a Purpose. Into the Blue is the theme.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what's the website one more time?
JaxJDRFparty.com.
JaxJDRFparty.com. November 9th, 6 p.m., TPC.
You can
Limited
buy your
tickets.
Yeah, you can buy your tickets on the website. You can make a sponsorship donation, a funded care donation, learn a little bit more about the event.
You can donate items too. For the silent auction.
Oh yeah, our
Live
silent auctions. It's really exciting.
You guys want some Jaguar flags?
Yes.
Yes, please.
We saw them. They're cute.
Anything you want? I mean, again, you want to add? You want to say hi to anyone? Maybe they listen. Maybe they don't. Your daughter's not going to listen. She's at college. She's not paying attention.
Go Tars.
Go Tars?
I'm
What
a
is
gator.
that?
A tar.
Don't
is
admit you're a
sailor.
gator right now, by the way.
I know. I'm a gator, but I was like, I thought for sure one of my kids would end up at the University of Florida, but my Robinson is at Rollins, and their mascot is a tar. So you say, go Tars. So technically,
What's a tar?
It's a sailor. But if you flip the O and the A around, it's like gators, right?
You're reaching.
Hilarious.
You're reaching.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Go Tars. I'm gonna have to. I didn't know what a tar was. JDRF. That's again incredible organization. Like I said, I like to rotate on predominantly healthcare related. We try to be. We have business owners, CFOs, healthy versus unhealthy business practices. But I love nonprofits, especially that are really kind of in the healthcare sector. I would say JDRF has a lot to do with healthcare, especially new parents going through this experience, experienced parents going through the experience. That's hard to say. Experienced parents going through this experience. Try to say that real fast.
Experienced parents going through this experience.
Ah, you guys are way better than I am.
You could touch on insurance too if you want. I know you know a lot about that, but
Again, we could talk about it for hours if you want.
it's tough with type 1 families.
It is really tough.
The cost of care. Again, insulin.
Getting
what
the
you're
supplies, going through hoops and chains
lot
to
of
get the
is.
approvals starting with the doctors. And when it's something she has to live on insulin the rest of her life,
Yeah,
why
and
do I need a
then
prescription
getting the
every 3
scripts
months?
filled monthly versus like, why can't we just have it like every 6 months? Like, this is a chronic disease.
And it just adds to the burden of the disease. And then now my
stress,
child in
the
college
anxiety.
is having to manage all of her supplies.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
So you don't want me to talk about it because I'll just badmouth my entire industry. Because, again, it's difficult. Imagine a parent, the cost is one thing, the difficulty of getting these supplies that you run out of constantly. And it's changing. But
And we're in America. I've been out of the country and met families whose children have died because they couldn't get the insulin.
yeah.
When we fight for this, we fight for it not just for the us that are the privileged that get to have
What was the
doctors.
numbers worldwide? 8 million worldwide?
8.8.
1.6 in
million.
America, right? Jeez.
Yeah.
Trey, how we doing on time? Last time. Oh, we got to wrap it up. Okay. I knew that would happen. Did time fly by? Did you have fun?
I did. Thank you, Eric.
Will you
This
come
was
back?
Great.
Yeah.
That's what I ask. If a guest leaves, you can lie to me on air, by the way. Kasey and Colleen with JDRF, Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, some fun events. I enjoyed myself. I learned something. I really appreciate it. You moms are incredible on so many levels, right? Thank you for joining me on What the Health Just Happened. Like I said, 104.5 WOKV. It will be available on all your podcasts. We'll have some video content to share, but thank you for joining me.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank
What
you
the
for
Health
having us.
Just Happened.